Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Danny. This is a preview video, the fight taking place in Japan between Ismael Barroso and the undefeated Andy Hiraoka. Danny, good to be joined by you. Always like doing these fight previews with you. If you are enjoying this video, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and leave a comment with your thoughts on this fight. Danny, Ismael Barroso, someone who we're very familiar with, aren't we? Had a stunning knockout win against Ohara Davis at the beginning of this year. Had that fight against Anthony Crolla many years ago now. 41 now. He is going up against an undefeated fighter here in Japan, which is part of a really good card taking place there on Saturday. Andy Hiraoka, for those that don't know, 23-0, 18 stoppages. Highly rated, but hasn't fought outside of Japan. Danny, interested to get your thoughts here. What's going on with this fight?
Yeah, Ismael Barroso, unbelievable, real sort of Indian summer. You mentioned the knockout win over Ohara Davis. I think the fight with Rolly Romero before that showed he's still got plenty left. Andy Hiraoka, I'm not particularly familiar with. I've seen sort of pundits online say they could see him sort of challenging around world level. But Barroso, you'd be so foolish to write him off after what we've seen recently. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's a funny one with Barroso because I don't mean this in a rude way, but he looks really old. And I remember when he fought Ohara Davis, I remember thinking he looks like he shouldn't really be in a boxing ring. He just looked exhausted, I thought. But then he kind of came and produced that stunning stoppage in the first round. And at the same time, look, it shouldn't be forgotten about what he's kind of achieved early in his career. Obviously, he had that fantastic win against Kevin Mitchell, albeit quite a long time ago. And yeah, just can touch on what happened against Rolly Romero, but yeah, obviously, kind of that fight was winning that fight and shouldn't have been stopped. Still at super lightweight, Danny. Do you think where do you have Barroso now? I know it's a tough question, and it's a tough division to be a part of. And obviously, yeah, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, maybe not Ryan Garcia, competing in that division. Some really kind of top elite fighters. Where do you have Barroso in all of that?
Difficult. I mean, I wouldn't pick him to beat the likes of Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, Liam Paro. No, probably wouldn't pick him to beat any of the world champions. Obviously, Valenzuela's got the other belt, but he does have legitimate one punch power. So at the same time, you can't necessarily write him off against anyone. But what is he? Is he 41, 40? I mean, especially at those weight classes, there's got to be some serious wear and tear. I mean, you mentioned the Anthony Crolla fights. Like, how long ago were they? It must be 9 years ago, more potentially. So I would, I mean, knocking out O'Hara Davis in a round, like I think we would have all said after that fight or before that fight, O'Hara Davis was definitely above British level. A lot of people would have said he was sort of fringe world level, and like Barroso cleaned him out. So I think I think he still has that WBA interim world title. I think he's probably at like a gatekeeper sort of level is where I would maybe have him at the current stage of his career.
Yeah. We'll see. I just think like I can't kind of get that. It was quite a way to kick off the year, wasn't it? I remember it was the 5th or 6th of January, the first kind of notable fight of the year. And I'm sure you stayed up, and I stayed up, and what happened was fairly unbelievable. Just to kind of round things off, we'll see what happens on Saturday night. Look, he's going up against an undefeated fighter who can punch a much younger fighter. So we'll see what happens in this fight. He's also traveling to Japan as well, so it won't be easy to kind of get the victory there. Just to kind of throw a bit of British interest here, Danny. I'm not saying these fights are going to happen, but us ourselves have some pretty good people, have some pretty good fighters at super lightweight, if you don't mind me saying. Jack Catterall, quite possibly the best at 140 without a world title. Shouldn't be forgotten what Josh Taylor's done. Dalton Smith as well, someone who looks destined to win a world title in the future. Um, I wanted to ask about Barroso being a potential opponent for Adam Azim. Adam Azim, who's still very young, hasn't had too many fights. We don't know what's happening with this Harlem Eubank fight. That fight looked like it was official back in March. It's now September. So yeah, I'm not really unclear what's happening there. But is that a fight that would interest you? Is that a fight you can see happening? Thoughts on that one before we call it a day?
It definitely would be a fight that interests me because it would put Adam Azim in against someone that he's not yet faced, which would be like a legitimate puncher. If you look at anyone Adam Azim's fought so far, I think there's no one with above a 40% KO ratio, and I think Barroso stopped like all bar two, three of his opponents, something like that, or three of his wins. Um, I would be very surprised if it was to happen. I think there's maybe a reason they've not put Adam Azim in with anyone above a certain knockout percentage, but that's maybe one for another video. But yeah, that would be a really interesting fight. I'm not sure which way I would lean on that. I think there's too many unknown variables with Azim to like make a sort of sure prediction. But yeah, I would love to see it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't rule it out personally, but we'll see what happens next for Adam Azim. We'll see what happens with Ismael Barroso on Saturday night. Danny, good to be joined by you as always. Good super lightweight action in Japan taking place this weekend, and we will see what happens. Danny, I will speak to you again soon.